The majority of entrepreneurship teachers today know the power of customer interviews in terms of business model validation. What can be harder is motivating our students to actually leverage that power and do their customer interviews. So often we find that they won't do their interviews for a number of common reasons. The first being, like many of us, they're just anxious to talk to strangers. No one's actually shown them how to do this interviewing thing. Like, they've never seen samples before, they've never heard them before. They certainly never learned this technique somewhere else. And then because of that, it feels like too much work. Like they have to go find people to interview, they have to ask them for the interviews, they have to do the interviews, all the while they're concerned about looking and feeling stupid. So in this video, I'm going to show you a two-step technique you can use to help motivate your students to actually leverage the power of customer interviews. And the first is to just tell them about that power. You can use the business model canvas to break down exactly why customer interviews are so powerful and will help them so much. But that's not going to be enough. In addition to telling them, we need to show them the power of customer interviews. And we'll do that with a real sample interview. So first up, let's talk about how to tell them about the power of this validation tool. If you use the business model canvas or the lean canvas in your course, this is a great time to reference it and then pose the question to your class: which components of your business model do you think customer interviews will help you validate? Oftentimes you'll get people to say, hey, it's the customer segment component it will help you validate, or the value proposition the customer interviews will help you validate. And those are both right. In addition to that, though, customer interviews will help them validate their customer relationships and their channels. You can see that customer interviews will help them validate almost half of their business model. And anything it doesn't help them validate directly, it will help them validate indirectly, because everything derives from this top right corner of the business model canvas. In fact, interviews are not just a powerful tool, they are the most powerful tool in terms of business model validation. Far more powerful than surveys, than focus groups, than market research or observation. Bar none, customer interviews are the most powerful tool to validate anyone's business model because everything derives from them. Nothing beats customer interviews in terms of a powerful tool for business model validation. So now that you've laid out the framework of why these interviews are so important, it's time to let your students experience the power of customer interviews by showing them. To do that, I'm going to invite you to run an exercise with your students. The first thing you're going to ask your students to do is to create a product for parents of children with ADHD. Now, they can do this individually or as teams, whatever you see fit. But have them come up with and design a product for this customer segment. Once they're done with that, ask them to design a Facebook ad to market this product. The Facebook ad should include several components, including a compelling headline, an image, and a description that motivates their customer to actually take an action. Once your students have done both of these things, then I want you to open up a discussion amongst your class about how confident the teams are that they've got a compelling ad and that they can get people to actually buy their product. During this discussion, I want you to really highlight the difficulties of coming up with a product in a vacuum, and how difficult it is to come up with a compelling marketing strategy or even one ad without having spoken to customers. Once they've done that, now I want you to play a sample interview for them. I've got a link to a real interview I've done with a customer, a mother of a child who has ADHD, and it's linked in the lesson plan associated with this video. During that interview, your students will hear two very real problems that this mother has encountered. They'll also hear the emotions that that mother feels associated with those problems, and the steps that mother has taken to try and solve those problems. And these components, the problems that she has, the solutions she's looked for, and the emotions associated with those problems, that's the gold of the business model. Like, those are the things on which we will build all the different components of their business model going forward. So have them listen to the interview. You'll find that the first 7 minutes are the actual interview, and then there's about 10 minutes of me analyzing the interview with some people I'm doing a workshop with. So feel free to listen to that so that you can answer some of the questions that your students may have about the interview after listening to it. All right, so they listen to the interview. Now have them redesign their product. This time they get to leverage the fact that they know the mother has a problem getting their child to sleep and is worried about what sort of compensation skills they're going to need once they're an adult. They can use these as inspiration for their new products and businesses going forward. Not just, of course, for the ADHD mother, but for any company they start. They can leverage the conversations they have with their customers to actually design their company and their products. Once they've designed their product, have them redesign their ad. During this phase, make sure they leverage the guilt and the frustration that they heard from the mother. They can use that to reach out to their customers, so the customers know that this person understands me. If they talk about the guilt of being a mother of someone who has ADHD that's been undiagnosed, all of a sudden that customer knows this person really understands my experience. So they can leverage those emotional words they heard during the interview in their ad copy. They can also leverage the competitive solutions that the mother has tried to use to solve their problem. Again, connecting with the mother and saying, I understand your problem, and because I understand it, I am uniquely suited to solve your problem. After they've built their new ad, open up another discussion. This time they get to compare and contrast what it was like to build a product in a vacuum, build a marketing strategy in a vacuum without having spoken to customers, and contrast that with what it's like to build a company inspired by your customers, leveraging your customers, collaborating with your customers to create and build a product and then market that product to those customers who are actively seeking a solution to their problems. All right, so now you understand both how to tell your students the power of interviews and also show them the power so they can feel what it's like to leverage their customers as inspiration. With that in mind, you now have the tools you need to go motivate your students to interview their customers. Take a look at the lesson plan we've got included for details and the link to the sample interview. Best of luck.